So, Pixar's Up. I have kind of an embarrassing story to share about this film. So, when I was little, my family was going to take me to see it in theaters. However, we got into the theater so late that we actually missed the whole first 10 minutes of the movie. Yeah, the most iconic scene from the movie I missed when I saw it in theaters. I feel really bad about that. But Up is a great film in general. Like, it's a pretty fun adventure film. I love the dynamic between Carl and Russell, and once again, the film is gorgeous. I also think it's pretty funny. Like, every time they mention the snipe, I always lose it. I don't know. How they say it is just hilarious. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite Pixar films, but it's a great film, and it's one I always look forward to rewatching. But of all the Pixar games in this marathon, Up's games are the ones I know the least of. I don't know anyone who has ever played these before. There's not even many reviews of it I can find on YouTube. So I'm pretty much going into these 100% blind with no knowledge of what they're about. Heck, this video is probably the first time any of you have ever heard about these games existing. Thankfully, for which versions are which, it's the exact same story as how Wally's games were. So these are the Asobo versions, and these are the Heavy Iron versions. Exactly the same story as last time, so no need to elaborate on that. Although, while after this game, Asobo would do a few more Pixar games, this would be the final Pixar game developed by Heavy Iron, and by extension, one of the last Pixar games THQ would publish. THQ's last Pixar game they would publish at all would be Cars Race-O-Rama, but in terms of the main movie games, Up was the last one they would publish. THQ and Heavy Iron did pitch their idea of a Toy Story 3 game, but we'll save that discussion for the next video. But did Heavy Iron go out with a bang, and did Asobo still keep up a good streak of Pixar games? Also, like Wally, I'll be playing the PS2 and Wii versions, since again, that's just what I ended up with. Well, let's start with the Asobo PS2 version. So, pretty much the same story as the film, so I'm not really going to get into it. But what we have here is a co-op adventure game. If you played any other co-op game before, this should sound familiar. You control both Carl and Russell, and you have to utilize each character's abilities to get past certain obstacles. You get some of these abilities as you progress through the game, and you can return to the previous stages to grab some collectibles you may have missed. Some of these abilities include using Russell's rope to pull Carl up, having Carl hit golf balls to knock enemies out, using a magnifying glass to blow up some TNT, etc. The abilities are fine, but they aren't anything that special. I just wish maybe you could use these more than just their designated places. Like, the closest I guess is going back to a stage to get the collectible you may have missed with your new ability, but that's pretty rare. You can also control Kevin and Doug, though unlike Carl and Russell, you can only use these two for a very small section, and then they just leave. I mean, there is this one level where you can control both Carl and Doug, so that's something. The puzzles are alright. Nothing brain taxing, but some of these are decent, I guess. Look, here's the thing. I find this game just so bland. Like, functionally, it works, but it's so boring, and especially in the first half of the game, some of these levels take forever to finish. Like, even just the first level on its own took me 20 minutes to finish, and the levels after that took just as long, if not longer. But here's the thing. After you chase the dog stealing the house, all the regular co-op levels afterwards had an okay pace. It's basically the opposite on how I felt about PS2 Wally's levels, where in that game I thought the first half had a great pace, but once you get on the Axiom, things just dragged on for too long. But I would much rather deal with Wally's bad pacing, because at least I really enjoyed the regular levels as a whole. Even in the second half, the gameplay was still pretty solid. Up's regular co-op levels are just so bland, and while yes, the second half does have a better pace than the first half, it doesn't really save this pretty dull gameplay. Now, like Wally, you do get some other types of stages. You have these rowing levels, and oh, these are just terrible. The controls are so clunky, like moving feels so stiff, and turning the raft is a massive pain because it just feels like turning in whatever direction it wants to. Yeah, these rowing stages are the worst part of the entire game. The chase sequences were alright, nothing really too crazy with that, but I do really like these platforming stages with the high jumps you do. I really like how the jumps feel, and the nice ambient music is cool. These were really fun, but these were the only stages in the entire game that I really enjoyed. The bosses were just kinda there, and the biplane stage is decent, I guess, though weirdly on the back of the box it advertises the biplane like it's some big feature of the game, despite there only being one stage at the very end where you control it, and even then it's really short. There's a lot of collectibles you can get, like these bugs, and you could get butterflies with Russell and these memories of Ellie to get with Carl, and you can view these individually in the bonus section, as well as concept art and other bonuses you can get by using the points you earn for the game. So there is a lot to do in this game, which is nice for replay value, but the game is so boring that I can't really bother with any of that. I don't even think the presentation is that great. Like, the voice acting is fine and the music is nice, though I can't say if I remember much from it, but the environments look so drained of life. Everything looks so bleak. Even the models don't look that great. Like, look at Russell here. He looks so dead inside, which does perfectly describe my experience with the game. Like, I know this probably was more based on the PSP version, so maybe it looks a lot better there. But on PS2, yeah, not a great looking game. Up on the PS2 is a boring slog. Like, there was a point where I was thinking of giving up and not finishing the game for the video because of how bored I was throughout all of it. That's how dull the game really was. I did manage to press on and finish it, but I still didn't have a good time with this. It's not terrible per se, but it's just so bland that there really isn't anything else to say about it. And as for the heavy iron version on the Wii, well, it's a little better, I guess. One thing I will say that I think is really cool about the Wii version specifically is that because of the less powerful hardware compared to the 360 or PS3, they actually decided to make the graphics of the Wii version resemble the illustrations of Up. That is really cool and definitely makes the Wii version more interesting. And the game itself looks pretty good. Way better than the dull PS2 version, that's for sure. We still have a co-op adventure game, and you still control both Carl and Russell, with Doug joining you on a few levels like the PS2 version. Though you can't control Kevin like the PS2 version, that's pretty odd. You still utilize each character's abilities to get through obstacles the game throws at you. It's still a pretty simple co-op game, but at least it's way shorter, and the pacing, like Wally on the Wii, is much better than the PS2's counterpart. The Wii version controls pretty well, I'd say. Again, even the motion controls aren't very intrusive, and when you have to use them, they work just fine. The Wii version also has these ambush sequences. Basically, you gotta counter the dog's attacks to get it away, but like, I swear, the counter move has like a 50% chance of working. I hit the button at the exact same time every time, and it only works half the time, which is pretty annoying. I said time so many times during that sentence, and I'm still saying time multiple times. Am I just a time person? Am I just going insane? So yeah, not a big fan of these ambush sequences. The PS2 did have better combat, I will give that version that. But everything else, well, you have these slide levels. That's something, I guess. The bosses are more unique, I guess. You fight 2 giant animals instead of just fighting 3 dogs. That's kinda cool, I guess. You even have an actual confrontation with Charles Muntz, so I guess that's something. There's 2 biplane stages instead of just one at the beginning and one at the end, and they're a little longer than the one level in the PS2 version, so that's kinda neat. Otherwise, meh, it's still a bland co-op game. Honestly, the only reason I prefer the Wii version over the PS2 one is that it's way shorter. but otherwise it's still a very bland and pretty boring co-op game. Again, neither of these games are terrible. I don't even think they're the worst Pixar games, period. Trust me, when I ever get to the handheld games later down the line, they'll make the Up games look amazing in comparison. But like, there are so many better co-op games out there. The Lego games, Little Big Planet. Heck, for a licensed game comparison, the Over the Hedge game is a really fun co-op game. Both Up games are just such a slog to get through. I didn't even like writing for this video because there was just nothing interesting to talk about with either of these two games. I guess if you had to pick one or the other, then yeah, go for the Wii version, but don't even bother with either game, to be honest. So yeah, I can't recommend either game. You're better off playing any other co-op game. It's a shame. Up was the last main Pixar game published by THQ, and the last game by Heavy Iron, and to see their last game end on such a bland note is pretty sad. But if you have played either of these Up games, let me know in the comments what you thought of them. Who knows, maybe you guys saw something in these games that I couldn't. We have one more Pixar game to look at before the end of the marathon for now. Next time, we'll be taking a look at Toy Story 3. Yeah, this is gonna be a big one for sure. I hope you all have an amazing day, and take care. Bye!